everybody, it's Femtrooper, and today I wanted to discuss the whole console versus handheld debate. What's better? What do I like better? Not necessarily what's better, but again, kind of a pros and cons to each, and what I like about each of them. One thing that I love about console games and the console itself is you get to play really cool games at home on the big screen. Love that. That's a huge benefit to console games, especially when you're playing really, action-oriented games that don't necessarily, that do merit having a big screen. I love having, playing something that's like either you're flying or it's like some kind of like sort of war game, and it's on the big screen and the graphics look amazing. So yeah, I would definitely have to say that playing games on the big screen is a huge plus for console. In general, console games tend to have more realistic and better graphics. The PS4 and the Xbox One are just capable of better graphics than the Vita and the 3DS. That's not even like a debate. So you're going to get some pretty epic stuff. And I don't necessarily mean realistic, but you're going to get really, really, really high quality images that you just won't get the same on the Vita or the 3DS. Although they are excellent, the console kind of wins on that one. All the big titles, all the AAA games, you're getting those on the console. You're not going to get the latest Assassin's Creed or Call of Duty or Bioshock or any of those kind of games that are like big. You're not going to get them on the 3DS. It's just not happening. As much as I would like to have some of those games, and I'm not saying there have been a few of those titles that have been handheld. Yes, there are Call of Duties that have made it to the DS. But in general, those games, you are definitely going to want them on the big screen. They're really exciting. You kind of get that movie theater experience feeling with console games. You're like Forza, for instance, looks like epic. It's not the same if you're playing it like this on the 3DS. Like it's just not the same. It's very cinematic. I don't know, it's very exciting. I love console games just for that reason. Boom, con, you can't play them anywhere else. You have to be literally in your living room or wherever you have your console hooked up. So you have to play it on the couch. You can't just take your PS4 on the bus. It's just not happening. You can't take it to work or whatever. Well, I guess you could take it to work, but you know what I mean. That's a huge downside, because there's so many games it's like, I would love to play that portably, but it's just not happening. One thing about new consoles that I don't like, and this is definitely only a thing of new consoles, it's not from old ones. Well, some old ones that were disc-based. This is a disc-based issue. You can't bring your save to a friend's house. So say you're like really far. I'm just thinking when I was a kid, okay? Say you're really far in Super Mario World, and you're like, "Wow, I can't wait to bring it to a friend's house and play all the levels." You could bring your cartridge to somebody else's house, and then start from there. You didn't have to have your console. It didn't matter, because the save itself is on the cartridge. Now I can't just bring my disc of Uncharted to somebody's house and be like, "Let's start where I left off." It's not happening. Not that that's been an issue. I haven't had to worry about bringing Uncharted to a friend's house, per se, but it's still annoying. So plus to cartridge-based consoles, but with new consoles, that's a huge downside. For some people, again, it hasn't really affected me. And new consoles for portable, that isn't a factor. Like the Vita and the 3DS are both cartridges. Not that you're gonna you would still use it on your, so that doesn't even matter. I'm talking about consoles only. You can't really do sleep mode. You can turn your TV off, I suppose, but you're just wasting so much energy, and it tends to heat up, and it's annoying. But if I'm at work and, I'm on my lunch, and then my lunch is over, I can just hit the power button on my Vita, come back home, open it up, I'm right where I left off. Super handy. Same with the DS. You just shut the screen. You're good to go. You don't really have to worry about saving. You can be like in the middle of a dungeon and you can't save, and you're like, no worries, I'll just close it. Done. But then you can't really do that with a console. I mean, I guess you could play something in the morning, go somewhere, just put it on pause or whatever, but I don't know. Nobody really does that. We all know those moments where your mom was like, it's time to go, and you're like, no, I'm fighting a boss. But if you're on a 3DS or Vita, no problem. So thumbs down consoles. Okay, handhelds. Handheld, I love handheld so much. Portable gaming is the best. And that's only just because I like JRPGs, and they are usually really long, and playing them on portable is so much easier than playing it at home, because you have to play it there. You have to sit on the couch, versus I can take an RPG to work. You can take it on vacation. There's so many places you can take it. The dentist's office, okay, maybe not, but whatever. You could take it anywhere, and I think that's a huge plus to portable gaming, handheld gaming. Let's face it, there are just as many awesome games, if not more, on handheld. You get all sorts of crazy kooky JRPGs, you get all sorts of platforming games, puzzle games, visual novels, lots of games that would never make it, like Danganronpa. It's not on a console. You can't play Danganronpa for PS4. It's strictly Vita. So those kind of games, or like Professor Layton, games like that, Phoenix Wright, like those aren't on console. I'm not saying that, like, there's a reason for that. Those are kind of games that you don't necessarily want to play at home on the couch. They're not, but you get all these unique kind of genres you don't necessarily get on the big screen. There are visual novels on console, like Walking Dead and stuff, but in general, not really as many. I think that's a huge plus for handheld, because you get all these cool games you would never get on console, but there are, huge big name titles that you're not ever going to get on handheld either, that you're only going to get on console. But let's face it, I've said all these amazing games on the console, but there's just as many awesome games for handheld. I think that handheld is better for playing RPGs. That's just my opinion. Somebody might really, 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 really like sitting at home and playing something, say, like Ni no Kuni on the couch. I super enjoyed that. I get it. There's some RPGs, especially like the Western ones, so playing like Skyrim at home, I understand that as well. But some of these really long games, like Persona 4 and stuff, it's like I would just way rather play that on handheld. I could play it in bed, I could play it on the couch, I could play it in the kitchen, I could play it at work, I could play it on a bus, I can play it on a train, I could play it on a plane. It's way better. I like that, just because these games are so freaking long. And 50 hours where you have to play it in the same spot kind of sucks. Again, depending, because there are totally some console RPGs that I kind of have to play on the TV, and that's okay, and I'll do it. But I just, lately, have really preferred playing games on handheld for that reason. Just the fact that I can play it anywhere, and with a long game, I want to be able to play it anywhere. As mentioned before, sleep mode, like the best thing ever, such a huge plus. Graphics are good. So, while the PS4, the Xbox One, and yes, the Wii U have better graphics than, the Vita and the 3DS, 3DS and the Vita have awesome graphics, depending on what you're looking for. Because some games on the, like, for example, A Link Between Worlds, that game looks gorgeous. I realize there are better graphics for, console, but that game was amazing. It was just beautiful. And same thing with the Vita. There are beautiful games on that as well. Danganronpa, for instance, is extremely colorful, vivid. It's just gorgeous on the Vita. The Vita has almost a better color scheme. Like, it just looks better than the 3DS. But the 3DS, you have the two great screens. The XL really, I think it really pops. Pokemon, for instance, looked amazing on the 3DS. So graphics are good. It's just like you're not going to have something like, the new Tomb Raider on the 3DS. Like, it's just not happening yet. Although we will get there. We're going to get, think about the Vita now and what it can do, and then what the next version will be like. Hopefully they do that, because I know the Vita sales are so shitty. But anyway, I'm hoping that we'll get, the graphics will get even better. But my point is, they still are really good. Games look amazing. Bravely Default, that game looks really, really, really good. I don't really have any complaints for graphics on handheld. They still look really good. Kind of a downside to handheld gaming, but they're not good for parties in general. You're not going to have like a Mario Kart party with your Vita. Like, it's just not happening. Like, as I say this, half the time people play online anyway, but which is why I like the Wii U, because you can actually have people come over and play games like Mario Kart, Mario Party, stuff like that. But although you can do a few things, like there's the Mario Party for 3DS, you can play with several people. It's not the same, but everybody still has to have a 3DS, so there's that. You don't with playing Mario Party on the big screen on the Wii U. You just have to have one cartridge, or sorry, one disc and one console. Although you gotta have a million controllers. There's no winning. Whatever. So yeah, that's sort of a downside to handheld gaming, if you will. Huge plus, I've already sort of said this, you can play it anywhere. But you can play your games on vacation. I think that's a huge bonus. Somebody who's going away for a month, or whatever, anytime you're going on a long weekend, you can take your 3DS and your Vita with you. You can play it in the car, you can play it in your hotel, you can play it on the beach, whatever. You can play your games. You can still play, Phoenix Wright on the beach. You can't really do that with a PS4 or any of the console games. So I think that's a huge bonus. For me personally, like every time I go on vacation, I always take my handheld consoles because why not? I'm going to play it on the plane, especially if I have a long, like I played so much Danganronpa on the plane to France because like that is a long flight and like you can only watch airplane movies so often. So it's nice to have games and something to do. So huge bonus for handheld. Those are sort of my pros and cons for console versus handheld. Now everybody has their own opinion. I know people who straight up just do not play any portable games whatsoever, and that's dumb. I think those people need to smarten up and seriously get a 3DS or a Vita or both, because I don't know what the hell they're talking about. One thing that I think people who were playing games, like maybe not, this might not be true of current generations, but older generations who were playing games in the 80s and 90s, I know a lot of people who steer clear from handheld games just because of the fact that in their head they still think that handheld games are the same as what the Game Boy used to be. And that is so wrong, because yeah, I remember at the time, Game Boy games were not really the same as the console. Like, they weren't up to par, if you will. Some of them were, but I get it. I know what they're thinking, because there's so many games where it's like, I don't really want to play that on Game Boy at all. And I get it. And some games were just not as long or epic, and they just didn't, it's just not the same. And I think people think that still, who've never really gotten into it, and it's almost like the Game Boy turned them off, and they're like, ugh, I don't really like handheld gaming if it's like that. But games on the 3DS or the Vita or the DS or whatever, PSP, they're just the exact same as console games, except like in your hand. So they have changed. I think the Game Boy Advance kind of brought out, the best, because the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, there were certainly limitations with games and even the way they looked. They just weren't as good. Look at a Game Boy game from, say, 1995, and then look at a Super Nintendo game from 1995. Like, it's way better. The Super Nintendo game is way better. So I can understand somebody back then being like, ugh, that's kind of awful, and then just never playing handheld. Because I know people who don't play handheld. That's lame. You should play handheld. And I know people who know better and still yet don't play handheld. But anyway, they're missing out because there's so many games that are main titles and franchises that you're missing out on. Like A Link Between Worlds. You should play that. So yeah, that's one thing that I'll comment on that. But if you really don't play handheld, that's lame. You should seriously play. And if you only play handheld and don't play console, that's lame too. You should play console games. So those are my thoughts on the whole console versus handheld argument. Again, I like both, but I'd say I tend to go to handheld more, just because I feel like I finish those games more. They're always in my hand. I can play them whenever I want. That is the huge bonus. That's really the bonus, whenever I want, because now we've reached a point where handheld games do look as good as console games to some extent and have the same, if not better, stories and plots and gameplay and all that. It's just as good. So those are my thoughts. So let me know what you guys think about console versus handheld, what you like better, what your thoughts are, pros and cons. Maybe there's something I didn't even bring up that's a pro and con to each. Let me know, and I'll see you guys later.